Welcome to Inspire Campfire, a podcast where ordinary people tell their stories of extraordinary adventure. These are campfire stories meant to inspire the rest of us to light the fire within, get outside, follow our dreams, and return to tell our own stories. Ready? Let's strike the match.
Welcome. Oh, today we have such a special treat at the campfire. I've been on a journey of personal growth my whole life. Setting big goals and working to achieve them has always been something that's been a huge passion for me. And today we're going to talk about climbing Mount Everest. So in mountaineering, this is like the goal that's as big as it gets. And in life, climbing Mount Everest is a metaphor for that big, hairy, audacious goal. It seems impossible. It seems crazy. Everest is the world's highest peak. It stands at over 29,000 feet above sea level, which is equal to 5.5 miles up in the sky. So according to Wikipedia, the first recorded summit of Everest was by Sir Edmund Hillary in Tenzing, Norway in 1953. But I guess there's some controversy around that because George Mallory and Andrew Irvin made an attempt in 1924, but they did not return to tell their story. So it's unconfirmed whether they actually reached the summit. So as of 1987, only 200 people had actually summited. But climbing this behemoth has become more popular in recent years. And by 2013, there had been 6,871 summits. Over 200 people have died on Mount Everest, and many of their bodies remain on the mountain. We're about to have a campfire conversation with my very good friend, Taylor Grist. Taylor is a local boy from Concord, North Carolina. He's a family man, and he is a very dear friend. He's one of the most humble, down-to-earth, and funny people that I know. And he also just returned from an epic journey to climb Mount Everest. Taylor, my man, welcome to the campfire.
What's up, Scott? How are you?
What's going on, man? I am so excited about this conversation.
Me too, buddy.
Man, I mean, how does it feel to be back?
Surreal. That's how I would put it. The stats you put up makes it sound so grim and deadly. But coming back, it's a totally different story than how it's perceived. So yeah, good to be back. Good to be back with family. Good to be back to work. But also miss the simplicity of the mountains as well, and the ease of making decisions compared to being back here. It's a lot tougher.
Yeah. So I mean, let's go right in, man. The stats make it sound grim. I mean, Mount Everest is a big, hairy, audacious goal, but you just said it's not as grim as scary as it looks. Like, talk to me about that.
Yeah, just feet on the ground, and it's an amazing adventure. Most time it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. And so, having the right team and having the right company to support you and get over there, especially during the pandemic, was pivotal. It's scary at first, but then once you get there and you're sitting at base camp and you're looking up, it's not as bad as it seems.
Well, and that's certainly one of the places that I want to go. I definitely want to talk about the details of the trip. I think people listening are like, super intrigued. Like, what is the story of Mount Everest? Like, what does that take? But I mean, you just said yourself, like, there's a whole lot of fear that you have in the beginning, and then once you get there, it's not so bad. But I mean, I gotta believe like that's the hardest part is getting over that fear. So. Like, tell me about that fear, like that decision-making process.
Yeah. So, it's not a spur of the moment journey. It's something that takes years and years and years. I started really back in Scouts when I was young, and rock climbing and backpacking and camping and wilderness survival, and just, everything that's every learning and every climb that I've done ever since then kind of led up to this pivotal point of Mount Everest. And it wasn't even a goal of mine until actually COVID hit. And then it became an opportunity that I was able to take advantage of very quickly. It's a full year of training, during a pandemic, and traveling up to New Hampshire to ice climb with some key people up there about once a month, and then hired a coach through Training Peaks that became one of my really good buddies, and just started that path. And a year later, we were ready to roll, and we were able to get a flight into Nepal and start our trek in.
That's amazing. So, I mean, it's good to hear, like, you don't just wake up one day and go, I think I'll climb Mount Everest today.
I wish it was that easy.
Yeah. So scouts, so climbing, outdoor adventures, like, how did you get into mountaineering?
I would say maybe, I'm trying to remember the exact date. I had a couple buddies that went to Climber Near, and they invited me along, and I passed it up. And then the next year I went, and I was like, I was hooked at that point in time. As you know, those two people were yourself and Mr. Southern Man.
Yeah.
And when
Yeah.
when you guys came back and I heard your stories, I was like, oh man, this sounds like something for me.
Man, and the fun thing is, like, I had a blast on that trip, but then, watching you kind of go and do Mount Rainier, and then I think you did Mount Rainier a few times, didn't you? You did a couple of different.
Yeah, 3 times, once in the wintertime. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what's super fun about this, to kind of bring it full circle, the voiceover for this podcast is my friend named Kevin Schoolcraft, and I'm sure he'll be on this podcast at some point, but he was my inspiration for Mount Rainier.
Awesome. That is a full circle.
It's totally full circle. Now it's, I think that was close to 15 years ago, but man, life tends to get in the way on some of this stuff. I mean, we've both had a lifelong journey of craziness, just out of college, and, being recently graduated, irresponsible 20 somethings, and having families and growing. But, like, watching you and your journey with mountaineering has been so cool. Like, so you did Mount Rainier, but then, you had a couple of other buildups to Everest.
Yeah, Mount Rainier, and then I climbed the tallest mountains in Mexico, and then I traveled around South America and did climbing in Bolivia and Chile and Argentina, and then in 17 I did Denali and was able to summit Denali, and then from there it was I was planning to do Aconcagua, and then COVID hit, and I was like, my wife and I just sat down. I was like, it's never really was a goal to climb Everest. And then the opportunity just opened up, and looking at a full year of being home, because I used to travel 70% of the time of work, and looking at a full year of being home, I was like, man, what a great opportunity this would be, just to put in the work, train, and get an opportunity to go climb Everest. And so that's where the way it kind of built up to it.
So let's go right to that. You said the opportunity opened up. Like, what did that look like?
Yeah. So as the world shut down, it's my travel, which was 70% of the time, North and South America. It just went to zero. There was no travel anymore. And from there, it's a goal-oriented person like myself that's always always looking for what's that next piece to try to complete you, I would say.
Yeah.
What did that look like? And then so I was like, Aconcagua would be awesome. And so I signed up for Aconcagua through a company called Climbing the Seven Summits, and hired a coach through Training Peaks, Mark Postal, one of the best guys I know.
Nice.
And from there we just started training, and then as COVID started unfolding even more and worse, all countries started to shut down. And then I was like, man, what am I going to do? I got all this training, I got all this stuff. And so we put together a plan. My coach and I put together a plan to, hone in on ice climbing and get up to New Hampshire, because I still traveled personally, just not for work. And so started traveling up to New Hampshire, climbing ice up there. And then couldn't get down to Argentina, so Ecuador opened up. So I was able to travel down to Ecuador and get on Cotopaxi, Cayambre, and Chimborazo, and was able to put in some work down there. And then Everest, Nepal opened up, and we're like, hey, let's give it a shot. And so all the work and training, and led us up to opportunity. And that opportunity was Everest.
So talk
And
about that. Just like, so
yeah,
you said Nepal opened up
yeah.
and it was like, hey, let's give it a shot. I mean, was it that easy? Like Nepal opened up and you just like, we're going? Was there like,
It was
what was that decision
pretty,
making process
pretty
like?
much, well, the decision making process was, hey, Lindsay, which is my wife, what do
Yeah.
you think about this idea? And she was like, okay, all right, I'm cool with it. Let's do it. And then the next step was my boss, and he's like, hell yeah, like you should do that. And I was like, okay, sounds good. So I had two of the hardest obstacles kind of just taken care of. And then what it really looked like was basically just down in some gear, down in some technical training, and just focusing on fitness, where I had nothing but time. But through Zoom calls and being at home, I mean, there was a lot of time. I mean, a lot of time to work out in the garage gym and just put in the work and get ready for it.
I mean, that's like crazy special thing, Taylor, to have your wife and your employer support that. I mean, how long were you gone?
65 days.
65 days. So
Yeah,
how did you swing that from a work standpoint? I mean,
yeah. I asked and they said okay. I had it helps that I have been with my company for 17 years and been
mhm.
in our industry for 24 years. And they have supported me throughout the whole process of my climbing through Denali and through all my other ones. And so they were like, it's just the next step for you. So we're 100% in. We're your cheerleaders is pretty much the way they put it.
I mean, that's awesome. We're your cheerleaders. And
Yes.
I think that's really forward thinking of your company because like obviously you go and you do something like this and it makes such a better leader of you. I mean, you're tackling this sort of thing, and you're clearly going to come back a better person, and more able to do what you do, and
Yeah.
that, that's a pretty special
Funny-
thing.
yeah, it's funny you saying that. It's it's different. It's when 65 days you're in a fight or flight mode, it's pretty much what you are. And you come back, your choices are a lot more simpler when you come back. You're not having to choose between one extreme or another. It makes it a little bit easier coming back and taking on more responsibility because you know you can deal with it.
Okay? So the fight or flight when you're out there. I mean, let's go to Everest.
Yeah.
So talk about that fight or flight. Like, do you want to kind of just give a quick overview, like of the you said you were there 65 days. Like, what can
Yeah.
you kind of walk through what that 65 days look like?
Yeah, so traveling during a pandemic is pretty crazy anyways. Your PCR test, your quarantine once you get to Kathmandu. But from there, once you're there, once you get there, it's really half of it's taken care of. The next step is really about a 14, 15-day trek in through the Kumba Valley. And you're staying in these tea houses, you're doing acclimatization climbs in between that for about 15 days. And then once you get to base camp, you're living at 17,500 feet for the rest of the time. I mean, that's where you reside. That's where you're you're trying to acclimatize as much as you can with the shortness of oxygen. And then the milestones really on Everest are, I mean, you couldn't do it without the people and the support of the Sherpas and of your climbing team. And just the hardest part, is well, the most deadly part is going through the Kumba Icefall. But once you get through that, and it's pretty hectic, you're going through it like early morning hours where everything's still frozen, but you can hear blocks of ice just crunching behind you and all around you, and avalanches all around you as well. And it's pretty crazy. So it's
What's going through your mind and what's going through your body at that time?
can I get enough oxygen? Can I get enough food? And one step in front of the other. That's
So is it a worry of future? Is it like worry, or is it like are you actually feeling shortness of breath, or are you just
uh,
worried about what might happen, or are you actually feeling this stuff?
I, I don't think you worry about too much more than about like what's going to happen. It's more of you're present in the moment in
Yeah.
that point in time. I mean, it's like, how do I get through this as quickly as possible? How do I make sure that I'm keeping enough calories in me so I don't bonk? How do I make sure that drinking enough water because I mean, just so I don't get dehydrated and get altitude sickness? It's so many different things are happening at one given time, and it's like, am I too cold? Am I too warm? Am I do I have enough water? Do I have too much weight? It's like just so many different things. And so, your first trip through, you make roughly 3 rotations through the Kumba. And your first time through, it's just eye on the prize, just
Yeah.
staying one foot in front of the other. Yeah.
Yeah. And how long does it take to get through the Kumba?
First, so this year was a really dry year. So going back to it, this year was a crazy year, just because COVID. Not a lot of people traveling. Not a lot of people on the trail. It was pretty much dead on the trail for real. There was like usually it's packed, and from what we heard, but like we hardly saw anybody on the way in. And then once we got to base camp, it was scarce, and then it started to fill up.
Yeah, no, like, so the time that it takes, because you said you had to go through the Kumbu icefall a couple of times. How long does it take to get through the icefall?
The first time it took us 8.5 hours, and
Okay.
then the second time took us 6 hours. Yeah.
Okay. So you had to go through twice. So do you go through and then come back down, and then back up again?
So you go through, you stay at camp 1, and then maybe go to camp 2, depending on the weather.
Yeah.
Then come back down, you wait for a good weather window. Then you do your second rotation and you go up to camp 3, come back down, then you wait on your summit rotation. And then from there, you got about a 5-day trip up and down.
5-day trip up and down. Okay.
Yeah. Once you're acclimatized, once you get through it. Yeah. Yeah.
Got it. Cool. So you've got the one thing that intrigues me in this whole thing is you've got Sherpas that are helping you the whole time.
You do.
Are these people with you the entire time?
Pretty much, yeah. They from the start of your once you're in Kathmandu, you meet your Sherpas that you're with and your climbing team. From there, you're together until your trip out. And so our Sherpas were phenomenal. I mean, they're the backbone of this industry and of this climb. They're the ones that fix the lines. They're the ones that make sure that everything goes as according to plan as much as possible.
Yeah,
keep you safe.
Yeah. Well, so I'm curious, how high do they go with you?
All the way.
All the way to the top. Like,
yeah. They have to be with you the whole time. It's like Nepal policy. They have to be with you the whole time.
To me, that's a pretty incredible thing. People travel there to climb Mount Everest, but these people are doing it like how many times a year?
One or two times they'll do it. And like you're with them night and day for 65 days. So they become your family. I mean, they're still my family. We still stay in touch. We're constantly close. We talk a lot. It's that Buddhist culture. They're the most loving people I've ever met in all of my travels.
Yeah.
Some of the best people in the world. Yeah.
My guess is you made them laugh.
I'm sure they made me laugh as well.
I'm sure those guys loved hanging out with Taylor Grist. I'm sure you were a pleasure to serve.
My nickname was San Miguel, and so San Miguel is a beer in the region, and nice. So on the trek in, I was the one staying up late with them, drinking beers with them, and hanging out and like getting to know them a lot better, and so they nicknamed me San Miguel.
San Miguel, I love it. Okay, I'm going to keep that one in mind for future.
Absolutely.
Taylor, you guys got up to a really high altitude, and you guys didn't get to the top. You had some stuff happen. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, of course. Like I said, crazy season. I wouldn't do it over. I mean, I would do it over again. Yeah, of course. But our team executed flawlessly for our first rotation, second rotation, and on our second rotation, so let me just go through this. So first rotation, we made it to camp 1. We got bogged down on a 3-day, 2.5 day, pretty much a storm. So we got stuck in our tents for 2.5 days of 65 mile an hour plus winds, which just ripped some tents apart, almost destroyed our dining tent. And then we made it back down, and it was great acclimatizing for being up there and just being in the weather. Once we finished our first rotation, we did our second rotation. Second rotation took us to camp 1, where we stayed another night. Then we moved up to camp 2 at roughly 22,000 feet. Camp 1's at like 19,500. Then we moved up to 22,000. Stayed at camp 2, had some more weather come in. And during this time period, I think that was when the first typhoon went through. And we had 2 typhoons actually go through while we were there. Yeah. And then after Camp 2, we went up to Camp 3 at 23,500 feet. And from Camp 3 up, that's where you start using oxygen.
Okay.
Um, and I like what I don't think most people understand is like the fluctuation in temperatures. It's crazy. Like it could be like -30 or it could be like 105 degrees Fahrenheit, just from the radiant heat off the glacier.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, and then as you're going from Camp 1 to Camp 2, it's like you're going through the coal, and it's there's hardly any wind. It's just the sun's just beating on you hard. And
Wow.
same thing was when we were coming back from Camp 3. It's just so hot, just so hot.
I
Yeah.
didn't realize it got so hot. Wow.
Yeah, the weather changes pretty quickly. That's why you have to wear like a -40 down suit and then try to shed that pretty quickly as well.
Yeah. So you're at 23,500 and you're within like days, hours
Yeah.
of your summit attempt?
About a day and a half. Yeah,
Okay.
about a day and a half. And so we made it all the way back from Camp 3 back to Camp 1. I mean, got to base camp, and we're sitting at base camp. We had that second typhoon going through, and we're waiting on our weather window. And what happened was we had a group up at the South Col Camp 4,
Okay.
and they mentioned that their Sherpas were moving pretty slowly, and which sparked some conversation around camp. And then we were roughly teed up for our summit rotation. It was like 9 o'clock at night. We had all just kind of left the dining tent, getting ready to go to bed, and wake up at 1 a.m. and start heading for the summit, or start heading or for our summit attempt. And what happened was we all got called out of our tents. All 8 of us got called out of our tents, all went to the dining room tent, and they let us know that all of our climbing Sherpa at Camp 2 had COVID. And we were like, what? Like, just totally just kind of just destroyed us. So we put a 24-hour hold on our summit rotation. And what happened was we tested everyone, found out they had COVID, and really you have to have one-to-one Sherpa. And we didn't have the numbers to make it work. We tried everything for a couple of days just to see if we could get other Sherpas from other places, and we just couldn't do it. And so we had to cancel our summit rotation. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did that feel?
At first, it was very, very disappointing. A couple of us were really optimistic that we'd be able to figure it out, but it just didn't evolve that way. People took it harder than other people, I would say. And then once we found out it was over, we pretty much got drunk. We pretty much just said, okay, it's over, and we pretty much got drunk. And
Hey, makes sense. No, it makes complete sense. I mean,
and then about a day later, the second typhoon was going through, and so we made a choice to leave as a team. A lot of people chose to helicopter out once the typhoon left, but we chose to leave as a team, and we left at 7 a.m. and we humped it back through a typhoon and heavy snow, downpour, rain the whole way back, and did it in 2 days, where it was a 15-day trip in. So a lot of camaraderie coming out of it.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Well, listen, when we were on the phone the other day, I mean, you were very convicted that it was absolutely the right decision and no second guessing. I mean, and I think you were kind of explaining that it was getting to the end of the climbing season, so there wasn't really an option to keep going.
Yeah, so our summit day was scheduled for May 28th.
Yeah.
The climbing season closed on May 31st.
Mhm.
So that really gave us 2 days to get back down once we summited,
Yeah.
which is about all you need. But it was absolutely the right decision. I mean, when you're talking about family, and that's what we are.
Yeah.
You don't want to put unnecessary risk on people.
Yep.
And the symptoms of COVID are almost exactly similar to the symptoms of altitude sickness and HAPE and other things. Just that shortness of breath and things like that. It could put unnecessary risks where there shouldn't be any, especially on a mountain like that.
You guys made the right decision, and I told you on the phone the other day. I mean, to me, for what it's worth, it had to have been heartbreaking for you, but to me, you're my friend that climbed Mount Everest. Like, I could care less whether you got to the summit or not. Like, I am just inspired beyond belief by the fact that you were able to train for this and make this thing happen. Like, it's just incredible. And the fact that, I mean, you were prepared to do it. You had the mindset to do it. You had the physical body and stamina to do it. And to me, that's what matters. Like, you've inspired me. Like, watching you through Mount Rainier and South America and Denali and everything that you've done. It's really, really inspiring. The thing about this podcast is what we're trying to do is really just encourage people to get outside and, and find that connection with nature. And,
Yeah,
you've been doing that your whole life. And
I
so
have.
my question for you is, why, you said you're goal oriented, right? I mean, you could have picked any goal, right? You could have run a marathon, or you could have, like, why the mountains? What calls you to the mountains?
There's no other place like it in the world. There's no other place where you can truly disconnect from the world. No cell phone, no email, and your ability just to reflect on your life, whether it's family, work, and yourself, right? It Everybody needs that time, whether it's 30 minutes, whether it's an hour, whether it's 65 days. Everybody needs that time to just take a step back and say, because it's a crazy world out there, just to take a step back and say, you know what is it I want to do? How can I be better? How can I be more positive? And really just, taking a look at that and taking a real look internally. And that's what it does for me.
So you said when you're out there, you disconnect and you reflect. Like, what happens to Taylor in the mountains?
I've become a much more peaceful person. And there's just so many learnings, right? From, working with the team to, leading and to, picking the right choices that, if you don't drink, I mean, everything's a choice. And, you don't drink enough water, you know that you're going to get frostbite or you can get dehydrated. It's just having that natural awareness of things. It really helps you hone that in.
Tell me about that natural awareness. I mean, it's a presence, right? It's like
It is. It's a lot of practice to be present in the present. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's
100%.
really hard. I mean, we get distracted by, our cell phones, by the clicks, the everything in the world like that can distract us. I mean, being present where you're at, it's very humbling. And it also, I think it makes you a better person.
Why can't we find that presence and that solitude just like here in our day-to-day lives?
I think we can. I truly think that we can. I think we let the outside world draw our attention to other things instead of focusing on things that are important. And being off the grid, I think, kind of level sets you and helps you understand what's really important in your life. For me, coming back, it was, I spent 65 days away from my family and from my work, and coming back, it was like, I am a much more peaceful person. I'm more understanding of things, and it happens every time. And then also just being, listening to other people. We like to talk. We like to do all these things that make us feel better, I would say. But just listening to what other people have going on helps them as well. So
Yeah, the understanding. I mean, I know for myself personally, like every time I travel, I just like my awareness becomes more expansive because of just the different cultures and the people. And
absolutely.
so like through your journey of mountaineering, I mean, you started on the small side with hiking and then Mount Rainier and then Ecuador. I still have trouble. Can you say the Ecuador? It's Aconcagua.
Uh,
Acon,
so um, uh, Aconcagua is on the border of Chile.
Aconcagua.
Yep.
Aconcagua.
Yeah, that's what
Aconcagua. I gotta say that
Aconcagua.
a bunch of times because every time I see it on paper, I struggle with it. But so the progression, and then like Denali, you made a comment to me that Denali was actually harder than Mount
Yeah,
Everest. But I'm just
yeah.
curious, like, how did you grow in each one of those experiences, and how did those experiences grow on each other? Like in terms of what you're talking about here, the peace and the understanding and the reflection.
Yeah, I don't think, I know anytime you put yourself into situations that challenge you, you're gonna come back a stronger person.
Nice.
And so every progression that you have kind of pushes those boundaries and pushes your risk assessment, I would say. And so the more risks you take, that's acceptable risk to your skill set, the more you're going to learn and the better off you're going to be. And so if you continue to do that, whether it's pushing yourself at work, whether it's pushing yourself outside your norms with your family, whether it's pushing yourself like on an outdoor adventure, coming back from that, you're always going to be a better person.
Yeah. I love that. I love that so much. The challenge and the risk lead to growth. That's what I heard you say. And
I
so,
agree.
it's almost like you push your limits, you push the risk, you push the challenge, you grow to a certain point, and then you're ready for more.
Then you're ready for more. Yeah,
And so,
absolutely. I'm ready for more already.
so what's next?
Oh man. I, there's a couple projects that are out there that I like to look at for 2022, but I also gave a commitment to my work and to my family that
Yeah.
2022 would be a light year.
Yeah.
So Everest definitely in 2023. I'm going to go back,
Awesome.
finish what we started, and plus got a better understanding of what to expect. We'll see what 2022 holds. I'd love to get back down to South America. I'd love to get more into rock climbing, so ice climbing. So we'll see what it holds. Maybe
Nice.
maybe a 2-week trip, not a 2-month trip.
Yeah, there you go. So, does being back here kind of like the distractions start to build up real life, and it's just like it's sort of this feeling like that I need to go back to kind of fill the tank back up with the peace and the understanding? Is that?
So I would say I would never tell my work this. I'm just kidding. My family, right? I would say that it's easier to prioritize, and there's a lot. So I'm gonna try to put this the right way, the way I see it. There's a lot of leakage, I think is the way I want to put it. And that
Yeah.
leakage is a lot of people want your time,
Yeah.
like a lot of people want your time, and you got to prioritize what's the most important in your world, and you get that from being off the grid and you understand it. So like, if for work it's you can't be on every meeting. So one of the things that I had to do before I even left was make sure that my team at work was, if something happened and I wasn't able to be back,
Yeah.
then they would be prepared to step into my role and be able to, like in a succession planning. I mean,
Yeah.
they're getting your team up to speed. Like it helps out so much. And when I came back, my workload was not, it was hardly anything because my team was able to execute and work efficiently and get things done because you train them well enough to be able to do that. Home's a little bit different. You come back and you've been gone for that long, and it's pretty much, I have 2 young kids, children, and it's pretty much your Lindsay's like, here you go, and I'm like, wait, I need a couple weeks to depress.
Yeah.
I'm not ready for this yet.
Yeah.
And just managing those expectations is it's a challenge.
I
But
totally get it, but you're an inspiration to those kids, that's for sure. One of the things I love about what you said about when you come back is you essentially empowered your team,
yeah,
and now that you're back, like you're here, but it's not like that empowerment's just going to go away.
no, of course
So
not.
now your team is stronger, and together you guys can do even more, which is
Absolutely.
that's really
Yeah.
powerful.
Is very, very powerful. And I think that's a good takeaway. Like whether you're an individual contributor or a manager, it's being able to set yourself up for success and working smarter, not harder, and
Yeah.
being able to do that by, enabling and empowering others around you.
Yeah. So I just want to shift gears real quick because I'm really inspired by the word awe. We throw around the word awesome all the time.
Sure.
But the first podcast that I recorded, before that podcast, I looked up the word awe in the dictionary, and the Google version, which is Oxford Languages, defines it as a feeling of reverential respect mixed with fear or wonder. I wonder if you could talk about, I'm sure you had some experiences of awe when you were out at Everest.
Yeah. I, Man, so once you land and you start your trek in the Kumba, once you land in Lukla and you start your trek in the Kumba, it's all awe. I mean, it's exactly that. I mean, just the people, the culture, these massive, monstrous mountains that are
Yeah.
constantly around you that you're looking up like, oh my God. I mean, it's definitely an awe experience. So there's a lot of those all experiences. I would say the fear side of that is, you're sleeping on a glacier that moves at base camp. You're sleeping on a glacier that moves 3 to 4 feet a day, and so when you do have time and you're by yourself and you're laying down in your tent, you hear the cracks and the creaks and everything underneath you as that glacier moves, and then all of the mountains around you and the avalanches that you're listening to, and like everything just like it just kind of like it's like, whoa, I'm in this moment, and it's like I can't believe I'm actually here.
It's amazing. So you're this human that's just
Yeah,
sitting on this glacier. Like, I mean, this is the wilderness. Like you're out in the
yeah,
wild. And
you are.
I do kind of wonder because I think some people, think of people that climb Mount Everest as like sort of adrenaline seekers. But I also think that it's, so I mean, I'm going to ask you, like, is it the adrenaline? Or is it like, is it a desire to sort of beat nature, or is it a desire to sort of be with nature, be part, you know what I'm saying? Like, what does that feel like?
So it's different for everyone,
Yeah.
right? For me, it's look, it's great to be in nature. It's one of my favorite places to be. I think it's more pushing yourself to your limits.
Yeah.
And that's what less for me, it's like, how far can I push myself without breaking myself? Because then I know like as things arise in your life that it's easier to handle situations if you can push yourself and know where your boundaries are and
Mhm.
know where you can thread that needle, then coming back and living in or operating in the world as it is easier to make these decisions that because they're not life threatening. They're not
Yeah.
like am I going to do this today? Am I going to like what am I
Yeah.
going to do for dinner? Right?
Yeah.
It's like decisions that are really, really, really easy. Same thing with work. I think it um it makes them simpler.
So how does Taylor, everybody's different. How does Taylor make those decisions, those boundary pushing limits? I mean, ultimately you guys had to make a decision that you were going to come back down, and
Yeah.
that was the right decision. Like, how does Taylor make those decisions where it's like, when am I pushing too far, and when am I like at that limit and it's time to turn back?
I don't know yet.
Good
I'll just
answer.
continue to push until I feel it, right?
Yeah.
Fear's always there. You have a choice. It's do you push through the fear like and keep moving forward, or do you take a step back and say, hey, this whatever this is, it's not for me, and you know what?
Yeah.
That's my boundary. I don't think I hit my boundary yet. And so I'll keep pushing it until I feel like that's enough, right?
Is there something like inside of you that tells you, hey, maybe this isn't the time?
Yeah, I think you got that gut feeling.
Yeah.
I think everybody has that. Like, now it's different whenever you're by yourself versus being with a guide, because that guide knows and sees you and can say, "Look, you hadn't reached your boundary yet. Don't worry about it. Like keep pushing." But I think when you're by yourself and you're outdoors, you may have a different look at it, and you may not want to push it just because you don't know what that risk could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, we could talk for hours, and maybe we'll end the recording and keep going. But we're getting here to the running out of time. But I want to just two other couple quick things. Is I want to just get your take on people that are listening. Like we already talked about, you don't wake up one morning and say I'm going to climb Mount Everest. But like, what is your advice for people that are listening, thinking like, wow, this is incredible. This guy climbed Mount Everest. Like, I could never do that. But like, what's your advice for people that want to experience that same degree of peace and understanding that you talked about when you get out into the wilderness?
Never can't be in your vocabulary. That's number one, right? And it's just a matter of you got to take that first step. Like you never know what you can accomplish if you don't take that first step. And if you take that first step, you never know what you can accomplish. It's just take that first step and see where it leads you. It may lead you down a path that you find that peace and you find that what you're looking for. And then you may not find it. If you don't find it, then take the next step on a different path and see what you find. So I would say never. And there's always a solution. Like if someone tells you no, challenge the status quo. There's always a solution. There's always a way to figure something out. So
Yeah. If
that's
you want your dream, you just have to go after it.
yeah, you do.
Yeah.
But make sure you get your wife and your work on board.
You gotta have the support. That's been
Yeah,
a consistent theme here for sure. All
yeah.
right. So when they make a movie about your life and your trip to Mount Everest, who is the actor that's going to play you?
So let's see. I think I couldn't have it any other way, but the characters that are currently what they are. Like I play myself.
Oh, nice. Okay, so you have an acting career coming up. I love it. You got the charisma. You could pull it off. I'm still watching that movie.
And everyone else, like just the whole team, man. It's like just the funny things that happen and things that went on. It's just like I wouldn't change it for the world. There could
All
be
right.
no actors. There could be no
So
actors.
when you go back, the cameras are coming with you.
Let's do it.
There you go. All right. What's your movie going to be called?
I think Untangled.
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 Right.
Just
Give me some context on that.
I just say, you got there's a lot of things going on in your head, right? And so if you can simplify it and not get caught up in just like the rat race and just untangle your life, like you can accomplish a lot of things.
That's magic. Untangled.
Untangled.
Keep it simple. That's what I'm hearing.
Exactly. Keep it simple.
Dude, this was so awesome. I really appreciate it. To everybody listening, I hope you've been inspired as much as I have. I hope that Taylor's story has encouraged you to listen to that voice inside of yourself that calls you to adventure. Because I want to hear your story next. And if you have a story to tell or you need a nudge to get out and create one, send us an email. And until next time, I want to encourage you to get outside. Thanks for listening. Taylor, thanks for doing this.
Thanks, Scott. Really appreciate it.